Okay, Zada, buddy, I'm not saying your plans are never good. I am just saying that this one in particular just might be. Wait.
Zada, Hedron Grinder. For 3 and a red, you get a 3/3 legendary creature goblin ally that says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada Hedron Grinder, copy that spell for each other creature you control that the spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those creatures.
Okay, Zada, I told you that wasn't gonna work. Oh god. Whew, that hurts. Zada Hedron Grinder. Good guy, I hear. Even better as a commander. This mono red deck can get you a lot of instantaneous value to propel you into a win pretty much out of nowhere. It can kill a player with ease. It can kill 4 players with a little bit less ease. But either way, you do that, you become a threat, and your next game is going to be a little bit different because people don't exactly like to lose out of nowhere. This deck is packed full of ways to make creatures, any kind of creature. It is a goblin, but it isn't a goblin deck. Just there's a lot of good goblins that make more goblins. And then there's also ways to draw cards by targeting single targets, like Zada. And so for the few strategies that we have, the first thing we gotta do is make some creatures. So we have some creatures that can make more creatures, meaning a creature is more than one creature having more target creature. Tianali's Summoner.
Tianali's Summoner is 1 and a red for a 1/1 creature human shaman that has Ascend, so whenever you control 10 or more permanents, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game. Whenever Tianali's Summoner attacks, you may pay X and a red. If you do, create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. At the beginning of the next end step, exile those tokens unless you have the city's blessing.
Tianali's Summoner is great because the Ascend is really easy to get with its own ability. All you gotta do is pay a lot into that X and then you get all those creatures to stay once you have 10 or more permanents at any time. It's pretty easy to get that with Tianali's Summoner because you are just turning your mana that you have available into creatures. You can do similar things with Mere Battle Sphere. You can get Beetleback Chief, you can get Siege Gang Commander. They enter the battlefield and get some creatures, unlike how Tianali's has to attack to do it. Most creatures I don't want to have attacking in to do any creature gain because then you get a creature that dies and you feel compelled to try and save it somehow or do something in particular. So don't focus on that too much because you don't really want to have to waste your resources on saving the things that are just meant to be bodies until they actually matter. And there are plenty of weirder ways to get creatures that don't even require you to enter the battlefield, like Casual Tyrants of the Cliffs. I mean, they attack you, they don't pay the 3, you get a 3/3. And in all honesty, you probably don't want to use it to block unless you absolutely have to. Loyal Apprentice, as long as you have your commander out, you're essentially just going to be getting a 1/1 every single combat. Well, your combat, not theirs. Or you get Young Pyromancer. I mean, we're casting spells. You get a creature, get more spell. Spell to creature, spell, more creature. It's really simple. This deck doesn't require a lot of thinking. For the most part, you can kind of run it without even caring what everybody else is doing. You can just kind of zone. We even have some non-creature ways to make more creatures, so we can get things like Empty the Warrens to help us out here.
Empty the Warrens is 3 and a red for a sorcery that says create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. It has Storm, so that means when you cast this spell, you copy it for each spell cast before it this turn.
The Storm is really nice, even though it does cost 4 mana. Every other spell that we usually have costs 1, 2, or 3 mana at most, so we're going to be able to cast a bunch of them within a turn, and then as long as we have, I don't know, 3 copies, that's 8 creatures. That's enough. We can do pretty much lethal to everybody with 12 creatures. And I mean, you can cast these other things too that just make creatures for a 1-to-1 rate. You got Kranko's Command, you got Dragon Fodder, Hordling Outburst, Song of Totentans. I'm gonna say it that way. Each of these allow you to get a different number of creatures. Song of Totentans is kind of like how Tianali's Summoner's ability works, but just one-time effect. By the end of this, you're gonna have a lot of creatures. You've really essentially tricked every single creature of pretty much any type to come in and do your bidding. It's dastardly. What a plan. Yeah, come on in. Yeah, no, yeah, exactly what it says. Come on in, yeah. Hey, yeah. The first thing we want to do with all these creatures is find ways to get more cards so that we can use them to get more power, for more things. It's really simple with things like Expedite.
Expedite is an instant for 1 red that says target creature gains haste until end of turn and draw a card.
Expedite's the whole reason why I even thought of this deck. Obviously, Zada was meant for things like this, and I'm not exactly breaking new territory here with Zada, but he is my favorite commander that I've ever built. One of the first that I've actually ever completely built on my own. So, with Expedite, you just essentially draw a card for each creature you control for a single red mana. And normally this would be where I go wah wah for every other card that we have, but I'm just going to tell you exactly every single card that we have that does a similar effect, either drawing or scrying. Let's go. Gotta get my reading glasses on here. Let me read off a few of those cards to you right now. We have Renegade Tactics, Accelerate, Flick a Coin, Coming in Hot, Daring Escape, Fists of Flame, Inordinate Rage, Stun, and Titan Strength. That's everything that I have in here that does anything with card draw. And these are all immediate card draw / scry. All of them. All of them. You have plenty more options you can put in if you need it. I found this is pretty much all you'd really need. Each of those gets you essentially, for each creature you control, another card. And if you're scrying, you usually want to go and scry until you get another thing that can draw you more cards, because you kind of want to have as many cards as possible. Just as a proof of concept, if you have 10 creatures, which is not hard to do in this deck, 10 creatures, you can then pay 1 red mana to draw 10 cards, to then pay another red mana to scry 1 card 10 times, to get another card that says pay 2, draw 10 cards. You've spent 4 mana total and looked at 30 cards, 20 of which you've drawn. I don't know if it needs to be said, that's some pretty good value. And we even have Spellbook in this, because Library of Lang sometimes is much more expensive than we can afford. You can just get to your Spellbook and immediately have it so that you don't have a maximum hand size and you can keep whatever you got. There's a lot of other instants and sorceries in this deck. In fact, there's 26 instants and 10 sorceries. So what are we gonna do with those? I'm feeling that we gotta figure out what the rest of them do. But before we get into all that, I think it's time to go into our mid-roll.
He doesn't even know I have a YouTube channel. I don't think it matters. I mean, everybody's decided to subscribe lately. Should I tell him? I have a lot to think about, since I don't have to think about how I play this deck. I could think about hitting that like button. I think a lot about a lot of things, but not about this game. This game's easy. Oh, is he wrapping up?
I play Siege Gang Commander.
Good.
So you might be wondering, what do the rest of them do? Well, they do things like Brute Force.
Brute Force for 1 red gets you an instant that says target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn.
Yeah, the game plan is straight up just get in. Get in for damage. +3/+3 for 1 red mana. That's it. You have plenty of other things that do the similar thing. You have things that will go in and they'll just give it a +2/0 and then a 1/1 aura that gives it trample for another 1 mana. You have things that'll come in and give it +4/0 in trample. You can double their power. Immediately, you see the value that comes out of this. But the thing is that if you have 12 creatures, that's essentially death to anybody. What do we usually want to do when we get our creatures? First thing we want to do, we want to send them in. Obviously. We want to hold them up until we have enough. But once we do, which I would say is 12, so 4 for each, send them in. Just send them in as is. 26 of these things are instants. So unless you have to do it before you go into combat, don't do it before you go into combat. Let them decide how they're gonna block, because nothing is scarier than a man who is saying, well, okay, I have enough, and doing nothing else and swinging all. What's gonna happen? They don't know. Nothing could happen. That'd be really funny, but it's not gonna be nothing. You're in fact gonna kill them all. Zada's whole plan goes like this. You swing in with 4 1/1s to each person. Let's just say that's the minimum. You can usually do more, but let's just say that's the minimum. Then when they declare their blocks, which they can't go back on, you're gonna go, okay, in response to damage, I am going to +3/+3, +4/+0, +2/+1, double their power, give them double strike. They all have trample. That is death. Because if you just gave them, 3, 4, 2, they're 10/10s, they're 20/20s, they're each 20/20s with double strike and trample. 4 20/20s with double strike and trample is usually pretty okay. In my opinion, I'm not saying that you have to agree with me. And even at that, we have some things that can help do some chaotic, fun stuff in this deck, because who doesn't love a little chaos in their life? First thing I'm going to tell you about is Krark the Thumbless. If you let Zada's go first, which you by all means have the right to do, it'll copy it for each other creature you control, and then Krark will see if the original resolves. If you lose the flip, it goes back to your hand. And in all honesty, that's not a loss. That's kind of a win. You could also get Stormkiln Artist. It's in here. And with Stormkiln Artist, copying the spell still gets you a treasure. 1 red mana for that Expedite. You copy it for each creature you control. And if it's 10 creatures, 1 red mana nets you 10 mana. Essentially, as long as you have 4 or more creatures, you're always going to be gaining mana after using the treasures to cast the next thing. And then finally, the upgrades. Because everything so far costs only about $18-ish. What are the upgrades? First things first, Roaming Throne. Obviously, put Roaming Throne in. You say a Goblin, Goblin make triggered ability go brrr. Roaming Throne has been getting really expensive as of late. I wonder why. It's because there's only 3 things that copy triggered abilities. But Roaming Throne, perfect for this deck. Same thing with Lithoform Engine, same thing with Strionic Resonator. Copy a triggered ability. Fun one that I don't see a reason to put in, but you can if you find that it's a problem, you can do Obstinate Familiar. You can just choose not to draw a card whenever prompted. Meaning you can draw your entire deck and then just not lose. Like, it's just that thought is funny to me because it's you and the last player. You have a hand that's full of cards, your entire deck, and unless they get a kill spell, you can kind of just sit there and be like, I'll try it again. Like, I don't know why that gets me so much, but you can just say no to draw. Do that. Get everything, and then just be like, I'm not going to draw. You go. And you might be wondering, is this deck really good? No. No, it's not. It's actually really fun, though. It's one of the most fun decks I've ever had the privilege of playing. Most people don't like it because it does kind of just go bah, and then it does whatever it did. But I do highly recommend that you get it, because even if you do want to try it out a couple times, $18 isn't a bad price to pay for a joke deck for a one-off. You'd pay more on a dinner that you didn't like, you know? Also, the funnier thing, half of these cards are probably ones that are just sitting in your bin anyway. You can just peel them out and then use them in a deck. Then you have the solution already, and you can make your friends really happy. Anyway,